Hello, everybody. My name is Curtis Caesar John. I'm Executive Director of the Lumino Theater, and I want to welcome you to tonight's conversation, Kindred Conversations. On behalf of our team, I'd like to welcome you to this inaugural edition that we're having with the Santana Project. So we actually first conceived of this program at least 2 years ago, but we took our time to launch it because we wanted to begin with the ideal family of artists who could very much represent intergenerational Black film, media, and the arts in a multitude of ways. And so it's an understatement to say that the Santana Project consisting of family members Al Santana, Marilyn Nance, RaFia Santana, Ali Santana, and Stephanie M. Santana, who we'll introduce one by one, that they fit that bill perfectly. This family, they're all multidisciplinary artists that have widely contributed to the media, photography, video art, digital art, textile art, and music for close to 5 decades. And they've influenced untold numbers of artists who unflinchingly diverse Black depictions of life, history, and the future using original and robust storytelling techniques. In fact, I was familiar with most of the family's work, but didn't actually know that they had been defining themselves as as an interdisciplinary, intergenerational family of visual artists and storytellers under their Santana Project moniker. So when I say that they are the ideals to begin kindred conversations with, that's not flowery language, it's the absolute truth. So a couple things. Until this Friday, December 15th, you can experience the Santana Project's work all in one place at luminotheater.org/kindred-conversations.org. Oh, sorry, I said that wrong. luminotheater.org/kindred-conversations. That's right on our website, and there's a link to it right on the top of our homepage as well. And since we're talking about calendar stuff, one more note. I'd say it's also very divine that this discussion takes place on December 12th. It was not deliberate. The family schedules just aligned to this day. But family patriarch Al Santana also worked very closely with the December 12th movement, which is a Black human rights organization based in New York City that for decades now has organized political actions leading toward local and national mass mobilizations of racism, self-determination, reparations, quality health care, housing, criminal justice, and education, when he was directing the documentary Durham 400. Now, if you lived in NYC, you may be familiar with them, with the December 12th movement, from them hosting the Days of Outrage, the annual Malcolm X shutting down marches in Harlem on May 19th, on Malcolm's birthday, the Million Youth March in partnership with the late Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and the first Millions for Reparations rally in Washington, D.C. So just know that on top of us having this event on this, which also makes it special, this day it's extra special that it's connecting so well with everything that this family, various things that this family has worked on. So before we bring them all to our virtual stage, that's a few more things. I want to first thank all our audience members for joining us here via Facebook and YouTube, as well as those watching it after tonight via both of these platforms. We do these programs for you, for the film and media arts community, to shine a light on the fantastic existing and new work that Black artistic community provides to the world at large, and to ensure that it also exists in the archive, which is part of what we'll be talking about tonight as well. We also want to thank our Lumino Board of Directors and our individual donors who make the work that we do possible. And we also want to thank our funders as well. For 2023, the Lumino Theater is supported in part by a grant from Color Congress and from the National Endowment for the Arts in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, with additional support from a BLBB General Operating Support Grant from Central Carolina Community Foundation. Our work is also funded in part by the South Carolina Arts Commission, which receives support from the National Endowment for the Arts. The Lumino also receives additional support from the Henry Luce Foundation, the Willem de Kooning Foundation, and the Tieker Foundation through the Coalition of Small Arts New York. All right, that's all a mouthful. I've said enough about all that. Let's begin. First, we want to bring to our first virtual stage, Mr. Al Santana. And I'm going to read Al's bios, and we're going to bring each family member up as we read those. So first, welcome, Al. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Curtis, for putting this on. This is fantastic. Thanks so much.
Oh, absolutely. So Alfred J. Santana is a professional film and video producer, director, cinematographer, editor, abstract painter, and overall visual artist. Over the past 30 years, he has made numerous award-winning documentaries, public affairs films, and videos that have aired on both network and public television. Mr. Santana's production company, Al Santana Productions, produces independent documentaries, narrative, and experimental work for television, the web, and theatrical presentations. The company also produces industrial and corporate videos. His award-winning documentary film, Voices of the Gods, takes a look at two ancient West African religions that are practiced in the United States today. It premiered at the 1985 Margaret Mead International Film Festival and went on to screen at festivals in France, Italy, Burkina Faso, Canada, and throughout the United States. Voices of the Gods is currently housed in a permanent collection of New York Public Library Schomburg Research Center in Black Culture and numerous colleges, universities, and museums, including Smithsonian Institution's Museum of African Art. In 2012, Al co-produced Salty Dog Blues, a 52-minute documentary about retired merchant marines of color and their relationship to the National Maritime Union. Al's a recipient of New York State Council on the Arts' Independent Filmmaker Grant. And Al, in collaboration with historian Denise Belen Santiago, worked over 5 years on this compelling documentary that tells the story of men and women mariners of color from Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Suriname, and the U.S. mainland. As a freelance cinematographer, Al worked on the Oscar documentary Who Killed Vincent Chin, directed by Christine Choi, Born in Flames, directed by Lizzie Borden, I Be Done Was Is, directed by Deborah Robinson, Litany for Survival, The Life and Work of Audre Lorde, directed by Michelle Parkinson and produced by Ada Gay Griffin, and Namibia Independence Now, directed by Christine Choi, produced by Pearl Bowser, among others. Rest in peace to Pearl, of course. Al, there's so much more to read about here.
Yeah,
I mean, it's beautiful because
you're gonna have to go through all of it. We'd be here all night long.
I'm going to read this last part and we're going to move. As adjunct faculty, Mrs. Santana taught film and video production courses at the City College of New York for 14 years and Digital Film Academy in New York City for 3 years. Al Santana holds an MFA degree in digital cinema from National University, a BS degree in sociology and film from the City University of New York SUNY BA program. Al's a former member of IATSE Local 300 Cinematographers Union, currently a member of the Black Documentary Collective, DV Republic, and the Independent Future Project. Thank you, Al. Thank you again for joining us here tonight.
Thank you so much, Curtis.
Of course. Next up is family matriarch Marilyn Nance. Hey, Marilyn. Oh, you're muted, Marilyn, so.
I knew that. Good evening, everybody. And thank you so much, Curtis, and Luminal Theater.
Of course, absolutely. Marilyn was born in New York City in 1953. Her mother worked in a factory and her father manned, I don't know, I was saying your father married your mother, an elevator at the post office. She was the first in her family to go to art school, to Pratt Institute, Brooklyn's own Pratt Institute, although the decision was met with reluctance from her mother. If I declare that I'm an artist, Nance says, that doesn't sound like I'm going to have a job. We have all heard that. But she's had work her whole life. Nance has been published by the likes of Life magazine and the New York Times. And yet, according to the Library of Congress, her photography is incidental to her central purpose, the exploration of human connections. Nance has twice been a finalist for the W. Eugene Smith Award in Humanistic Photography. Her website biography reads, for her body of work on African-American spiritual culture in America, including the Black Indians of New Orleans and African Village in South Carolina, churches in Brooklyn, and the first Black church in America. Her work is in the collections of the Brooklyn Museum of Art, Art Institute of Chicago, the Museum of Modern Art, the Smithsonian American Art Museum, the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, and the Library of Congress. Has been published in the World History of Photography, History of Women in Photography, and the Black Photographers Annual. In her photos of family gatherings, hey, you've done a lot. In her photos of family gatherings,
been around a long time.
I'm sorry?
We've been around a long time.
Hey, that's all we're going to talk about too, so it's all good. In her photos of family gatherings, religious ceremonies, and daily life, she captures an unguarded, tender beauty observable to only an insider. Like many artists, Nance is first an observer, a people person, a humanist. For her, the camera is just one way of processing life's experiences. Nance's first trip out of the United States to Lagos, Nigeria at age 23 was for Festac 77, the second and final World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture that included more than 15,000 artists, intellectuals, and performers from 55 nations worldwide. Nance served as a photographer for the U.S. contingent of the North American delegation. The trip was infused with her own experience of working to understand family lineages and human connections. Those images are collected in her new book, Last Day in Lagos, an archival encounter of her documentation of the landmark festival, published in 2022 by Kara's Fourth World Books. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you again so much for joining us.
It's a mouthful.
But it's a lot for a reason, you know? And that's not even everything for both of you. So
yeah. And
next up is Ali Santana.
Firstborn.
Hey, Ali.
Greetings.
Ali Santana is a multidisciplinary artist from Brooklyn, New York, who draws inspiration from community, nature, ritual, ancient technology, and hip-hop culture. His work combines time-based media, rhythmic storytelling, and emerging technologies to create immersive experiences that explore history, identity, and Black abstract improvisational traditions. Santana currently works across video, sound, sculpture, live performance, and installation. Ali is exhibited at the International Documentary Festival Amsterdam's Doc Lab, Brooklyn Academy of Music, Museum of Contemporary African Diaspora and Arts, Mokata, and Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute, who we just did a project with, actually. Santana has performed at Brooklyn Museum, Mana Contemporary, and Roulette Intermedium, and was commissioned by the Onassis Foundation to create an immersive installation for the 2023 Archive of Desire Festival. Ali is an award-winning educator recognized for collaborations with local community organizations and larger institutions, including the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, and Apple Incorporated. Ali is a member of ONX Studio and the multi-generational artist collective who we're with tonight, the Santana Project. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to bring up RaFia Santana. Hey, RaFia.
Hello.
RaFia Santana is a Brooklyn-born multidisciplinary artist using animated graphics, self-portraiture, and music performance to self-soothe, seek pleasure, and crack jokes throughout their experience, mental illness, chronic fatigue, sensory overload, and everyday racial violence. That's true. RaFia uses bright, saturated colors and rhythm-centric productions to stimulate energy and attention. The artist uses hashtags and slogans as both memorization practice and call to action. RaFia constructs looping animations that breathe, which calms her anxiety and helps focus. They perform their music against animation projected onto her body and stage using singing and rapping lyrics to bring slogans to life. RaFia has exhibited their work at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, Mokata, Tate Bryan, Museum of Moving Image, and Times Square. They've been featured in Vogue, Teen Vogue, Paper Magazine, Culture Magazine, Vice, and other leading publications. They have performed and participated in panels, discussions, and events at Black Portraitures at Harvard University, Pratt Institute's Department of Digital Arts, New Space Center for Photography, Afrotechopia, and NYU Tisch School of Arts, and MoMA PS1.
Cool.
Welcome again.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. And then we have next up Stephanie Santana.
Hey.
Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Stephanie M. Santana constructs narrative works that explore interior worlds, mythologies, navigational tools, and resistance strategies within the Black diasporan experience. Working across fiber arts and fine printmaking, while frequently employing improvisational techniques and what feminist theorist of visual culture Tina Camp terms the haptic encounter. With archival photography imagery, her intuitive practice spans time and geography with the intent of unearthing useful information. Santana is exhibited at the John and Robin Horn Gallery at Penland School of Craft. Oliver Gallery, and the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, among others. Notable exhibitions include a contemporary Black matriarchal lineage in printmaking in 2021, presented at High Point Center for Printmaking, and the Power of Portraiture selections from the Department of Drawings and Prints, 2022 to 2023, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She has received generous support from EFA Robert Blackburn Printmaking Workshop, Sustainable Arts Foundation, Wingate Foundation, and the Print Center, and is a 2023 NISCA NIFA Artist Fellow in Printmaking, Drawing Book Arts. Her work is held in both private and public collections, including the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Philadelphia Museum of Art, and Getty Research Institute. Santana holds a BA in Communications from Western Washington University and an AAS in Textile Surface Design from Fashion Institute of Technology. And she lives and works in Brooklyn, New York, and is the wife of Ali Santana. All right, Santanas, thank you all.
Thank you.
There will be a test after this.
We'll see who passes. And everybody watching this, everything can be seen. All these bios you can catch up, so you can win the test, pass the test rather. Everything's on the Lumino website, luminotheater.org. So feel free to check out all of their works and everything there as soon as you get a minute. Okay. And it'll be up there it'll be on our website for a little while to the end of the week, especially. All right, everybody. So let's jump right in. First, like I said, thank you all for being here. It's really special to have all of you all in conversation with us, to talk about your work together and separate. So let's just jump right in. Hold on one second. Actually, I need some water because I just read all your bios and y'all know it was a mouthful, and it was. But I'm really happy to have you all here. I know I've said that 3 times now, but it's very, very special to finally have this event. Okay, so first I'm going to start with Marilyn and Al. Although this question can kind of open up to everybody, but as the elders of the Santana Project, and Marilyn's bio spoke a little to this, but I do want to ask even more specifically, like, where did y'all get the inspiration to be, and then even like call yourself an artist? Like, how did you know like being an artist was even something available to you, and that it was something you could even pursue? It's difficult to do now, and I can imagine in the 60s and the 70s when y'all were teenagers, how more difficult that probably was. So can y'all speak a little to that for us?
That's a good question. I often wonder, how did we get here? And I remember doing art projects. We had a lot of creative projects while in public school. And I remember liking art when I was in middle school, but didn't go to art high school because there wasn't, I didn't have anybody help me put a portfolio together. But during my high school years, I got very involved with the student rights movement, and we were making flyers. And I think I got into the graphic side of art after that. I was always interested in advertising, the ability to take a thought and make someone take some action after seeing an ad or something like that. So I was influenced by the persuasive abilities of art. And not art. I would, in those days, I would have called it communications, because I was involved in radio and television, graphic design, photography, like a whole lot of stuff. But I chose photography because it was easier for people to understand. Unmute.
Hey, Al, you're muted.
I was saying, I think it goes back when we talk about intergenerationality and lineage. I think it goes back to my parents. I remember my parents were makers. They were craftspeople. My father used to make watches. He used to do all kinds of woodwork. My mother was a craftsperson. She sewed. She had a number of different projects she would be working on constantly. She did painting by the numbers, and we all were engaged with that. So I think, and my father would, on Friday nights, he would bring in like Super 8 or 8mm movies and put up a sheet, and we'd all sit there and watch cartoons. And in the kitchen, he would transform the kitchen after dinner into a dark room where he would process his own photographs and then color them afterwards. So I think it started there, although as I grew up, I never thought I would be doing that. It was just kind of an entertainment thing. I didn't think about it as a calling as such. So that's sort of how I sort of thought about it. And when I went into the military, I became a dental lab technician, and that just requires a lot of work on materials, plastic, gold, investing materials in casting, and so I did that for 3 or 4 years, and I think that's basically, and it's an art thing basically. So when I when I got out of the military, I wanted to be a dentist, and so I was going to school to be a dentist, and I took a film course because it was 6 credits, and only because it was 6 credits. And then I sort of got hooked after that. Started doing experimental cinema, and I guess it was a sort of a visceral aspect to it, and it drew me in. But again, like what Marilyn is saying, it was also a way of communication, communicating. And I felt that the visual medium was very useful for me for that, as someone who really didn't like talking.
What else said made me think of something. Our parents were probably artists, but art was not considered a profession really up until recently. And I remember my mother making drawings on matchbook covers. That's just the size of the canvas that she had. And so we're 20th century iterations of our parents and our grandparents, and they were probably artists and storytellers. But when you look at the census, you see like your grandfather was a farmer, or your grandmother was a washerwoman, or something like that. But that's the we did. But I think maybe when people got home, they made quilts, or they did different kind of creative things. And we're the 20th century, mid-century iterations of our ancestors.
Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense. That unofficially an artist, but definitely an artist. It's just not, you might not be paying the bills, which doesn't mean that you're not an artist, obviously, right? It might not be paying the bills, what your artistry, but it is still art, and you're creating and you're sharing it with the world, or even within your own small world.
We know our parents did not send us to college to become artists. That we know.
Mine definitely didn't.
Right. Right.
Stephanie, actually, I would love to get your perspective on this too, because I'm thinking of all the quilt makers, and I know in a lot of your work you reference like the ones in the South, like G's Band and such. So I'd love to get your perspective on that as well, especially since you're the newest member of this family, and they had Ali and RaFia also had parents who supported art, or who are artists. And so I do want to get your RaFia and Ali, your perspectives on this as well. But as someone who creates quote art and that kind of work also, or textile art, and especially quilting wasn't necessarily for a very long time seen as art, although obviously it very much is. So if you can share that, I'd love to hear your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, I think similar to what Marilyn and Al are talking about, that a lot of my family history, like my grandfather, it's actually his birthday today. My paternal grandfather, he would have been 117. His father was a painting contractor, so I read that like he knew how to mix different colors together, and like you could make, add a little bit of black to something, and it would make a color that you wouldn't expect. So he probably had that artistic ability, but that wasn't, something that he was doing where he was calling himself an artist. I have family members who are photographers. Like a lot of my the photos that I'm working with are from my my maternal grandfather, who was a photographer and educator in Texas, Wendell Long. So I think in terms of working with the quilting, it's not something that was directly passed down to me, because my mom, she would say that she didn't like to sew. I think she tried to make a pleated skirt in 8th grade, and she's like, I'm never doing that again. So I learned to sew actually from a community member, a friend in Brooklyn, Hakima, probably 15, 16 years ago. And I think what I'm really working with is probably ancestral memory, because I believe that I have people, further back in my lineage that really were probably quilt makers, work with textiles. So I'm pulling on that, and it's something that I just try to channel through in terms of working with the repetitiveness of the stitching and everything. It's very meditative. So I think it was really natural the way that all came about.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love hearing that. It's like passed through the blood, right? And just through like the physical experience of that all. So that's really profound. Thank you for sharing that. Um, Ali or RaFia, if you both can share, like even a little more specifically, let's like what were the first mediums of art that either of you started with that made you really feel that I'm a creator, I'm an artist, I can make videos.
I don't know. I feel like we were always making stuff.
Mm.
Just to jump off the quilt thing, my grandmother made quilts, and she made me a quilt. It's got little dolls on it. I used to have it on my bed all the time, and it wore down, so I'd fold it up, put it away, maybe for restoration at a later time. But I was always surrounded by art and art making. There was at some point, I think I was given a camera, like a little point and shoot camera, in preschool, and I was running around taking pictures with that. There's like a little selfie, probably my first selfies on that. Um, but I don't remember like the first spark of like, oh, this is what I want to do as an artist, unless it was like maybe like a decade later or something. But I was just always surrounded by different kinds of art making growing up. So pass that over to Ali.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think we were always surrounded by art just because of the family that we grew up in. And so I know that I spent a lot of my childhood at different talks and galleries and openings and exhibits and screenings and things like that. And as a kid, that could be a little bit boring. And so my parents always made sure that they had pen and paper with them. And whenever I'd get bored, they'd hand me that pen and paper and just tell me to express myself there. And so that was what I would do. I would just make these drawings of different situations when, as a child. Um, but really just learn how to be creative through like every aspect of life. I think that was just kind of something that was built in to how we were raised. But I didn't really feel like I was an artist until maybe I started working with digital art. I think that was kind of where the spark came for me,
Yeah,
that I
same.
could, when we first got our Apple Plus computer in the house, this computer was able to make like, I was able to draw on it. I was able to make like little animations, and that blew my mind because that was something that was only,
Shout out to
I could,
Claris Works.
yeah, Claris Works, Kid Pix, all of that early HyperCard. Um, animations and digital art was just something that we see on TV on Saturday morning. But so when I started to make these things and kind of see how sound and motion and image could work together, that was a big spark for me that I could create these things that I'd only, been able to consume.
Yeah, that's I find that really interesting. It's like it's you're I guess you in a lot of words you're trying to create, you're trying to recreate what your everyday, I guess, right? Um, and so then how does that work with? We'll stick with you, Ali, and then we're gonna kind of round robin with everyone. So like, how do you feel like you I think I can describe some of your work in video and sonics as abstract, right? How do you think that? First of all, would you describe your work like that? First of all, and if either way, whether you do or not, how do you think that's has informed the rest of your family's work, especially your dad's as Al? You've recently, I guess, officially become an abstract painter.
Uh, yeah, I do describe my work as abstract. I really enjoy abstraction now. I think I always have, like even as a kid when I would draw these images on napkins and pieces of paper. They were always kind of wild and crazy. And I remember like once I got into grade school in art class, I kind of had some issues because I felt that the teachers were only really rewarding students who were drawing images and illustrations that look like comic book characters. And I wasn't getting the gold star from my abstract works. And so I felt like I went through a long period of feeling like I couldn't express myself through artwork, and feeling like I couldn't draw because I wasn't able to get these kind of picture perfect and perfectly illustrated looking comic book characters, from my head onto the paper. And I think that that was an issue for a long time until like junior high school. An art teacher introduced us to assemblage and making sculpture from found objects. And this was an abstract exercise that I just excelled in. And she allowed me to do assemblage and abstract art for the rest of the semester. And then that's kind of where I regained my confidence. And then kind of moving into, the workforce, I started off as a graphic designer. And there was a real big emphasis on designing to the grid and making things perfect and kerning and aligning text in a certain way. And that felt really constraining. And then, once I started working more with animation and digital art, I wanted to break out of that and kind of tell these weird stories that, didn't necessarily have a straightforward narrative, but that could be interpreted differently by whoever saw them. And so that abstraction or that beauty and distortion or working with glitch art and things like that were really good for me to be able to express some feelings that maybe I hadn't worked out completely, or to just kind of create things as a diary almost without having to make it perfect. And so that's a style that I really love, just for kind of getting feelings out and translating thoughts and feelings and curiosities through creativity.
So with that said, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This was a shout out to Al for bringing in the first computer. We had one computer that we all shared. And shout out to Ayoka Chinzira for introducing us to that Mac computer. So Al was the first one to like work on a computer, and he was working and I was home, and and I would mess around, and we shared it. Or he would work on it at night and go to bed, and then I'd wake up and just we all took
I remember them days, yeah.
Well, there was also a lot of resistance to it when I first bought it, because Marilyn was working with her partner and they were doing some work. I think they were trying to develop some magazines or some zines. And they were going to invest this large sum of money in a copy machine. And I was like, why are they spending this money on a copy
y'all
machine
did.
when we can get a computer? And they're like, no, I don't listen to him. We're going to get this copy machine. We could do stuff in color and we could do all this stuff. So I just went ahead and
what are we still using today?
The computer, but within like 2 months, I couldn't even get on it anymore.
Wait,
So,
what year was this?
that was probably 86.
That sounds right. Okay.
Yeah.
86 or 87. Yes, 87, something like that. Yeah. And and then I couldn't get on it again. So, and then and then Ali, he'd be on it all the time, and it was like, get off that computer. What are you doing? Playing games all day long. What is that about? Go. You need to be an engineer. Same thing with RaFia. We're trying to funnel them into being engineers. It wasn't too successful, but
I almost went to engineer school. I was this
yeah.
close.
I'm
But,
still wearing the hoodie from that school. Shout out to WPI, Worcester Polytechnic.
Yeah, if it
And
well, it
wasn't for
just
that
goes to show
that
we
that
don't
math
really have
credit,
that much control over what happens in life, and we try to project our kids to do certain things and go in certain directions, but we're all independent souls in a way, and we kind of we take in what's going on around us in the world, and we fashion our own reality, and we just go with it, and fortunately it wound up in a really good place. We're all together, we're all doing similar things, and it's all good stuff.
yeah,
So
we didn't tell them not to do art, or we didn't tell them to do art, but that's what happened. But I was surprised when RaFia chose photography in college. I was like, what? I mean, what? But the good thing about RaFia studying photography, we had so much film in the refrigerator. I don't think RaFia has ever bought a roll of film. And have you?
that's why I chose photography. I landed on the photography major because I was like, okay, well, because I got into college. I went to Purchase College. Well, I went to Brooklyn College first, and my first major was psychology because I was an AP psychology in high school. And I was like, maybe that's what I'll do. And then I got to the class, and the class was just not stimulating enough. And then said, okay, let me just go into art because I can do that. I've been doing that. Um, and then I visited a high school friend of mine who went to Purchase, and I was like, oh, I like it here. And I got accepted and blah, 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 blah. But I went there and I got in for graphic design. And when I went to the orientation, and I just didn't like the way the graphic design program was set up personally. It just wasn't for me. So I did undeclared. So I was doing all different types of stuff. I was doing like printmaking. Printmaking is really cool. I love printmaking and screen printing and doing all of this stuff, but the facilities were really crowded, and because everybody has to take that, and it was on the first floor, and everybody just goes through there, and it was expensive. The materials for printmaking were drastically expensive, and it was like at one point I got a D because I just couldn't afford the materials for the class. Like a piece of copper this big was $60, and I was like, no thanks. But so eventually I said, you know what, I was already taking some photo classes because that's cool. And then I borrowed my dad's camera, and I used film that was in the fridge for
It's
decades.
full of,
The only
it's
thing I
full
bought
of,
was photo paper. And I bought that from everything else. I was using the developing tank that was, I think we already had. Maybe I think I might have bought a new one, but stuff like that. That's kind of why I was like, okay, I can work here. And then eventually I did. I did a lot of good work. I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. But I settled on photography because it was I didn't have to buy as much of the stuff. Really,
there were times we had film in the refrigerator, no food, but we never didn't have film. We always
that's
had film.
crazy.
That sounds like some artist, Joey.
we still have film in the refrigerator.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
true.
Y'all got food.
No food.
oh wow. Um, well, actually, Rafia, let's stick with you since you're talking about all these mediums that you've worked in and experimented in and yada yada. But it I don't want to say but because it's you know all of you do so many various forms of art. But music and performance seem like really central to your work. So, like, what is it about like this expression of art, of music and performance that really speaks to you? Is it like a freedom in that might not exist in some of the other practices, or what is it exactly?
I love music. I don't know. It's pretty simple. I really love music. And when I was a kid, I was maybe like around 4 or 5 when my mother's mother passed away, and I used to play the piano in her apartment a lot. So they moved the piano into our apartment. I still have that piano, and I begged for piano lessons. My parents said no first, and I begged again. I think they said yes the second time, and that's funny. That's like the only thing I can recall ever really like wanting to do as a kid. If I was begging for anything, it was like toys or something or food. But I remember like really wanting to learn how to play piano, and I kept up with that classical piano lessons for about like 12 years, and I finally sort of like gave it up when I was 17, because at 17 there was a lot going on in high school, and just like regime changes within like the music school that I was in, and then when you get to public school and you get to, I went to some pretty good public schools. Shout out to my parents for hooking me up with these really creatively centered public schools. But there's like it's still like public school, and then I remember in high school specifically, I applied for both art and music. And music took me, so I was like, oh, I'm a bad artist, they didn't take me for art, I didn't get in for art. And then I ended up in the art department like years later, in like my senior year, and I saw my freshman test, and it was like amazing, but it just turned out like the music department just kind of like siphons all of the the applicants in through there. And they took too many pianists for a concert band, so there was like 5 of us when they only needed maybe 3. So we were kind of just like doing nothing in the back of the class. So I felt I went through all these different stages. And so music just wasn't lining up properly for me for a while. And I was on my computer a lot in high school. I was just on the computer a lot, like a lot. I'm on the computer a lot now, but especially like as a high school kid, you got like, endless time. And I had Photoshop, and I was online, and I just, picking up, like I was on Neopets and like MySpace and all that, picking up the people with cool pictures or like cool art. It looks like maybe you paid for it, or it just looks cool. So I was just like, I can learn how to do these things. We had Photoshop on the computer, and this was before the land of like YouTube tutorials. So I think I was just pulling up all types of like, written tutorials. I miss written tutorials. I think we need to bring those back. I can't stand when I'm looking for how to do something and it sends me to a video. But yeah, I was just learned how to do stuff on the computer a lot. So that's with the graphic design. But I love music. It just moves my body and it moves my soul. And so I eventually came back to it naturally. Actually, Ali was the one who was pushing me to make my own music like the entire time, even when I was playing like classical music. He's like, you should make your own music. And I always try to make my own music on like a staff paper, but my brain, I can't hold on to the thing that I just played on the piano fast enough to be able to write it down. I know some people who can compose like that. That's amazing. I can't. And so he would, kept pushing me to like try to make computer music. And then in high school, I'm going to wrap this up, but in high school and my music classes, when I was still trying to like navigate the music department, I took this like interactive media class in the music department where we had to use these old PCs that had this digital audio workstation called Cakewalk on it, and we learned how to use.
Yeah.
Right. So we learned how to use Cakewalk, and we made music. We made all this stuff on MIDI, using MIDI. And then we also had to make a stop motion animation to go along with the music. So, we had to make a stop motion animation and score that animation with this MIDI audio, with this MIDI sound. So it was really cool. So that was like I had like baby steps into making digital music. And then at some point in like 2012, Ali signed us both up for a crash course, 2 days on how to use the program Ableton Live, which is a modern digital audio workstation. And so I've just been messing around with it since then. And then when I graduated, and then when I was in college, there was a big music scene in my college at Purchase College, where a lot of the people around me were in bands and putting on shows at the college. And I was like, that's interesting. And I didn't really partake too much. And then when I got out of college, I was like going to like even weirder, like underground shows. I was seeing some of this weird stuff. And I was like, I could do some of this weird stuff. And so I started making like more, once I graduated college, I had more time to do that. I learned how to make music at the end of college, but I was like, I got to do my finals and and then just do that.
You're less regimented, and so you have like some freedom to explore. With that, we've been all having such a good time chatting. We have like videos and clips to show y'all, audience members.
Yeah.
So let's actually show a little bit of RaFia's Ain't Nothing music video, which actually also includes your art that you had in Times Square in 2019. So actually,
Yeah.
it's a great combination of things to let the audience know, to show the audience.
I'm RaFia. Pleased to be here.
Ain't nothing but bars spittin', kick hitting. Wonder where you been, you keep hitting. Real cute, pussy kitten. I'm too cold, you need mittens. Never normal niggas niggin'. We hit that beat and you gon' start jiggin'. You don't want no smoke with us. Tried to hit your ride cause you missed the bus. Yeah, we is serious. You need a nap, you delirious. Well, I have a nice nightcap. I produced to the beat and I rap. Turn my mic up, don't forget that. Turn my mic up, I gotta be loud. Hit the back of the crowd, know what I mean? I'm trying to get down. Don't act like a clown in front of my team, cause we going up and you know what you did. Remember when you wasn't fucking with the kid, huh? Remember that? Y'all ready for some rap? I was laid back trying to get my rest. You be looking over trying to copy my tests. I got the answers, I'm simply the best. You be looking stressed and under duress. Big vocabulary cause I read printed press. Way it up in time just surpassed all the rest. Shade of the money chain, stuff it in my dress. Pink and blue, keep it close to my chest. Uh-oh, dipping out.
I love that beat, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, to produce all of that stuff.
That beat is hot.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's really dope. Wow, I have so much more to ask y'all. We only have like 20. No, we
Yeah, I
have a little
realize the time is
We
gone.
haven't even gotten into it
more.
yet.
You didn't even start talking.
Oh, y'all been talking. It's just moved really nice and smoothly. So that's the beautiful thing about this. So who should we go to next? Al, you've been a little, I don't want to say silent, but we haven't
Okay.
been able to hear too much from you. So I would love to, we're talking about like, familial collaboration and such. All of your works have so much informed everyone else's. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about, your career and some of the collaborations you've done over the years. I was actually just chatting with JT Takagi from Third World Newsreel, and I know you've collaborated with them a number of times.
Yeah.
As I read in your bio, DP work on Born in Flames and Litany for Survival. Can you just speak to like any, like some, maybe one or two of like your fondest memories of like true collaboration and work with some of these companies and the various folks you've worked with over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I could, but it's like a difference between fond memories of production and fond memories after completion. There's a lot of times there's not that many fond memories of the actual production because it's work. They're usually very difficult to do. But in the end, when you look back at what you've done, then you have fond memories of things. JT and I, JT Takagi, she's the executive director of Third World Newsreel now, but she's a fantastic sound recordist, especially on social issue documentary film. She's been around for a long time doing this. She's like the go-to person. But we've been working on and off for many years now. And I remember one of the really like important films that we did was a film called Namibia Independent Now. It was produced by Pearl Bowser, the late Pearl Bowser, and directed by Christine Choi. And it was Doug Harris and myself who were doing cinematography, and JT was doing sound. We went to Angola for, I think it was 3 weeks, and we were documenting Namibian refugees who were living in Angola during the war with South Africa. And so we were actually in a war zone, doing that important work. And so in some ways, I feel that that's like a really important film that helped to contribute in some small way to the liberation of Namibia. So that's one. Sort of my seminal film on African traditional religions here in America is another one. That was Voices of the God, that was done back in 1985. Marilyn Nance and I collaborated on that one. Took 5 years to make at a time when not a lot of films about that subject were out, and there was a lot of consternation or just people who didn't really believe that we could even make that film, or why would we even want to make that film. So it took a long time to raise money to do it. The last film that I worked on was in 2012, 2013, which was a film about merchant marines of color from Puerto Rico. My co-producer and co-director is Denise Santiago. She's a professor at Pace University. Her father was a merchant marine from Puerto Rico, and he told many, many stories about what that life was like. And it started out as a oral history project that turned into a film. It won the Workers Unite Film Festival first prize. And so those are good things. And then of course there's Durban 400, which was about we talk about the December 12th movement, and today's December 12th. And what that was about was a struggle, a long struggle that of even just to get the conference to happen. It was a UN World Conference on Racism that took place in 2001 in Durban, South Africa. And the December 12th was really instrumental in having that conference even come to fruition. And my co-producer, director, co-producer, Iman Drame of the Drame Institute, she basically dragged me into this project because I didn't know where the money was going to come from to even go there and how to make it happen. But she made it happen. And it was her vision that, sort of got us there and got us through. But, that's a struggle that's continual because this issue of reparations is worldwide, is growing. It was at its really, I think it was at its peak during 2001 when the conference took place. But the conference ended on 9/9/2001, and we knew what happened on 9/11. So the whole trajectory of that movement, that victory that took place in Durban, because the whole issue is to get language into the final Durban Declaration that addresses slavery, colonialism, the transatlantic slave trade as crimes against humanity. And this group of activists who went to Durban to struggle for that language won. They won that victory. But 9/11 happened and the whole trajectory went to war. And so we've been in the last 25 years or so in war. And, so that's been sort of a problem in terms of like the reparations movement, but it's happening again and people are connecting to it. And there's an actual bill that's in front of Governor Hochul right now to have a study of reparations in New York State. And we kind of encourage people to call the governor and ask her to sign that bill, because it's really important when you think about the disparity between what Black people have in this country in terms of income and wealth compared to white people in this country, wealthy white people. It's just amazing, the disparity. And so that's just one of the reasons. And when we think about money and we think about where money is being channeled to, the war, for instance, the many, many wars that they have no problem finding huge sums of money to send to war, that same amount of money, even half that amount of money, could solve so many problems here in the United States. So these are issues that, and films that I've worked on and issues that I've dealt with throughout my career, and many others. And I also do more, entertainment stuff. I've done music videos. I've just worked with Hubert Eves, who's a really fantastic musician. He sort of dragged me into doing a music video for him in the last year because I told him I was basically retired. I've been doing this stuff for 50 years, and it's kind of like, okay, what's next? That's what I always think about. What's next? But he said, listen, man, we got to do this thing. Can you help me out? Can you help me out? So I said, okay, let's do it. And so he did his version of a monk's piece. Oh shoot, what's the name of his piece? Huh?
Around midnight?
Around midnight, right? Exactly. I'm sorry. I had a mental part. Yeah, but around midnight, and it's fantastic, and it's on YouTube. You can check it out. It's really a really interesting piece, and he's trying to encourage me to get more into that vein, which I don't have a problem with. Um, but yeah, so I've worked on a lot of different films. I worked on a film back in the 70s, the late 70s, called um, uh, Working or Slaving. It was about prison industrial labor, what happens to people who are in prison doing time and making product for the state, which is then sold out into the public. So it's like almost like a double jeopardy kind of film. It's a documentary. We did it for a public television station, and I also did a film on the late great Sarah Vaughan, which was produced by my good friend and colleague at the time, Thomas Guy Jr., who was a producer at a public television station, and he had a jazz program there, and he was able to pull together the resources to do a film on Sarah Vaughan. So it was partly a studio production, and then we went on the road with her. And so I shot all the footage that was on the road. So we went to Newport Jazz Festival, we went to Robin Hood Dell, we went to Houston, Texas, and the last leg of our trip was in Rio de Janeiro, and this was in 1977. And so yeah, it goes back a long way, and we've done a lot of work, a lot of different things. So it's hard to really focus in on what's the most memorable, the best. I don't think there's anything that's the best. I mean, I've worked on so many different types of documentaries and narrative films. We did this one film, Lizzie Borden. We did a film together with her. What was that film called? Gosh, can't remember.
Born in Flames.
Born in Flames. See, she's
yeah.
my brain. Born in Flames, and it's become like a cult classic. It's shown in theaters. I mean, it's showed in universities all throughout the United States.
Yeah, it was.
And how I got to work with Lizzie was basically bartered. She needed a cinematographer. I needed an editing table. She had an editing system in her loft, and I had the camera, and so we worked that out, and so we were able to make that film, which stands. It has legs.
I gotta say, I was tripping the first time I saw that, because I had no idea you worked on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Your name come up in the credits. I was like, whoa, that's really.
Yeah. A lot of different films, a lot of different things that I've worked on. Sort of as a cinematographer, kind of stay, you do the film and just move on. But and then I worked with Ada Griffin on the Audre Lorde film, which was also interesting. And I didn't do too many days on that. A lot of people worked on that film, but that's typically how newsreel kind of works. On any film, you might have like 10 cinematographers. So that's sort of like an interesting model.
So, what?
I also worked on Who Killed Vincent Chin with Renee Tajima and Christine Choi. I don't know how many I think there might have been 2 or 3 cinematographers on that as well too.
That's such an important film too. If anybody hasn't seen that, you have to watch.
Yeah, that's a powerful film. It won an Academy Award nomination. Mm-hmm. And it points to the whole issue of, social justice and injustice and what happens to people in this society. And,
so let's show a quick trailer from Voices of the Gods right now. I'm gonna cue that up. Jackie.
This is the particular offering that we do every year. We come here to the ocean because we realize that during the time of slavery, there were many souls and many spirits of our people that were lost in the Middle Passage.
What a great film. We were, Lumina was blessed to co-present Voices of the Gods. think it was early 2020. No, it was 2019. Sorry. Alongside Light Industry a few years back. So it was really fantastic being a part of that. Um, so thank you for sharing all that, Al. Stephanie, we're gonna go back to you for a second. So everyone, if you didn't get a chance to, make sure to go to Luminal website and watch the our re-edited version of the last conversation that the Santana Project had together, which was at Culture Hub's Refest in 2020. It's right there on our website on the theater link on the Kindred Conversations page. So check that out. But in that discussion, which was, as I said, in 2020, it was literally right before the pandemic shut everything down that y'all did that. Stephanie, you were talking about, preserving family images through your work, um, and like different ways and storytelling practices of doing so. Can you just give us a little update on some of your work and like maybe the different ways in which you're using family portrait, family history, family media in your work, and how you preserve, and maybe even how you and some of your siblings and your family members preserve your history in that way?
Yeah, I think Marilyn was somebody who really pointed this out to me, that she was like, everybody in your family is an archivist. So like my sister is very good at preserving photos and data. My brother is a photographer, even though he doesn't really call himself an artist. He has like an incredible archive of photographs that he's made. My dad knows every date of every photo he's ever made. So I think I'm just kind of going through, learning just more about my family history, but then also thinking about like the broader context of the work and of archiving and of collective memory. Because I think the way that I interact with the photos is really kind of trying to channel what kind of energy is there. I've been talking to my family about certain stories. Like I've talked to my mom about, if I have an image of when she was a child, I want to know like what happened in the image. And she could tell me like, oh, there was, I was wearing red shoes that day. Cause you can't always see, or you can't see in a black and white image what color something is, but she'll, her and my aunt both have incredible memories about their childhood and what things were like. So it's gathering those stories. I really would like to do an oral history project with them at some point in the next year or two. So that's something that's been on my mind. But I think it's also just really, like channeling that energy and kind of, I think my work is moving more toward collage and things where it's a little bit more abstract and it's not such a defined, just putting the image there and saying, okay, I'm kind of adding my mark to it. But it's a collaborative process, I feel.
No, that makes perfect sense. We only have about, I think we can extend a tiny bit, but we have about, let's say, 10 minutes left. And I just want to say to the viewers, if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat and we'll try to get to it. But I do want to ask Marilyn, because we're talking about family working together and such and everything. And I wanted to ask you about your style of photography, because obviously you have your book, Last Day in Lagos. That's fantastic and doing beautifully, and documents Festac 77, like a major period in the Black arts movement, or maybe at the tail end of the movement, I guess, technically. I wanted to ask, like, how has your photography evolved during that time, and how has your family formed the evolution of your photography?
I would say my style of photography is just my style of being, period. I'm in there with the people, and I'm part of the crowd, and I take it upon myself to make an image that in some way shows the feeling what I felt being part of the crowd or what I saw. And I've seen so many like great and wonderful things that if I didn't photograph it, you wouldn't even believe it happened. I mean, if I didn't, I like Festac happened. I have photographs of. I took a photograph of Alan Ali, and that was my first child, and I was like, I thought that was my last photograph. How am I going to be a photographer and a parent, and and a mother? And so every photograph that I make is actually an intellectual act. I mean, there's a lot of reading that goes into the making of the photographs, a lot of thought that goes into the making of the photograph. I'm not just pointing the camera. I'm actually thinking things out and feeling things. And it's my hope that when people look at the photograph, they're thinking and they're feeling as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like how they connect with your photograph. I mean,
Mhm.
so like, but then how does your so you're saying like because and actually, sorry, let me take a step back. I know from reading from your book and from other conversations that obviously as a mother you also brought your children with you a lot of times when you have to shoot. So like how does that did that I guess how does that affect your work professionally, but then also just like does it make it more fun, does it make it more challenging?
Well, definitely more challenging. I mean, I guess you just have to do what you have to do. But there have been times when, like, I'd have Ali or RaFia. Sometimes I don't know, maybe both of them, and they, being shorter than me, would see things from another point of view, and that would inform me about another way of looking at things. So they were like my seeing eye children. I guess that it informed me. I mean, it just was another input of information that I would not have had. So I think that being a parent really does do something to you. I don't know what it is, but it makes you have to think about other ways of being.
Hmm. That
You know,
makes sense.
one of
Yeah.
the things Marilyn just brought up that sort of resonates with me in terms of like the paintings that I'm doing, the abstractions. Um, I We have a grandson. He's not in this meeting right now. His name is Allende. He's 8 years old, and a lot of times when I'm painting, I will ask him. I says, "What do you see there? What do you feel?" And he'll explain to me. He'll tell me, I see this, I see that, and it helps me to see things that I wasn't even paying attention to. And so I understand when Marilyn's talking about having a seeing eye kid, or however she expressed it. I feel that that's the same, and that's part of our intergenerationality, our looking at each other and informing each other about our practice, about the intellectual aspect of what we see and what we're processing at the time. Because he may my grandson, he may look at something that I just painted and he says, "Wow, I see a railroad," and I didn't see a railroad, but now I'm thinking railroad, and now I'm thinking uh, Great Migration. Now I'm thinking, you know, other things. I'm thinking about people moving from one place to the next. So it's really important to have this input um, from younger people, from other members of our family, other members of our community, which is something that I don't think happens so much these days as they used to probably happen. What I've read about where people, artists would go to salons or they would have groups and they would sit around and they would talk about various techniques or issues and in smoke shops or whatever they would do. Now it's kind of we're all isolated, we're on screens now. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I think we're trying to revive in some way within this family to just basically talk about things.
Well, COVID pulled us together.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Sure did. I like
Well,
this
that's
image. I don't know this one as well.
which one?
Yeah,
Which
this
image is
image
this
up
out?
there is part of my Great Migration series. These are some new large scale paintings that I've been working on over the last year and a half. And so Yeah,
Almost
that's one
looks
of
like
them.
a
That's
fruit.
another. Yeah, I think you're gonna go through. Yeah, those are the, and they're abstractions, and how do we interpret an abstraction is sort of one of the issues that sort of uh, occupies my time now. To think about what I'm doing and how it's translating and how people are seeing it.
Hmm. Wow. Um, we've kind of come to the end of our time, y'all. But I do want to allow a few minutes for if y'all have any closing thoughts. If it's anything specific you want to say, if there's any specific clip that you might want to show of your work or images of your work or such, let's do that now, please, and or any closing words. That'd be fantastic. Oh, Marilyn, you're muted.
Yeah, I was going to read something, but I don't have it in front of me. So I just want to tell people that if you look in my book, Last Day of Legos, read it from the back to the front. No,
Really?
front to back, but not from the back. There's a lot of good stuff in the back. The bibliography, the list of names of people. I tried to name names, but there's one paragraph in the acknowledgments where I talk about the Santana Project and the value of the family and all
Do
of
you
that.
want me to
So
read it? I got the book handy.
you
Oh,
read it.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, let me grab it. Give me a.
You said handy.
I got it right here, but RaFia, you have it?
Go ahead, Steph. Oh,
Okay. No, go ahead,
Rafi.
RaFia. She
What is it? Which last paragraph?
Acknowledgements where it talks
page
about
283.
283. So which paragraph is it?
the. I don't know. You have the book.
It's the second to
The
second to the last
greatest
on the
art.
right. Yep.
Okay, yeah. The greatest art is the art of living. With the love of my partner and road dog Al Santana, dog spelled DAWG, Al Santana, we created a survival unit that we call the Santana Project, an urban Quilombo, a place of freedom for a whole family of creatives. Thank you, Al, Ali, RaFia, Stephanie, and Allende Santana, and my sister, Deborah Nance. You have fed me, supported me, counseled me, and kept me alive. To all my relatives, those who came before me, those who will come after me, and those who stand with me now, thank you for your inspiration and your distraction.
So that's how I feel about. Thank you. That's how I feel about my family. I love y'all.
Love you too.
Me too.
Love you, Mama.
Ali, anything you want to add before we depart?
I think the last, you said something about the last time that we had a conversation was right before COVID, or right before everything got shut down. And I don't know. I'm thinking of like what's changed since then. I think at that point, we were all doing different kinds of work. At least I was. Like I was really into live performance at that point. I've since kind of transitioned into more installation work. But I think that, earlier my mom said COVID kind of changed everything. I think we all kind of went deeper into our art practices, with that time where everything was unknown and we were on lockdown. And I, am just grateful to have had the knowing that I could be creative or express myself creatively to process the things going on in the world, and have that gift and to be able to do that, to be able to kind of survive during these times and figure things out through creativity or creative means. And so, yeah, I just wanted to make that point because I think that's what we all kind of did. We just put our heads down and really worked, and have, developed our practices.
My relationships have certainly changed. Like the way I relate to the people around me. Oh, look who's joined in. The way I relate to everybody around me has changed like exponentially for sure. A lot has happened since the pandemic, and not just the pandemic.
Stephanie, any closing words? And we should, as you say something, and hey, Yende, let's put up a couple of your pieces because we didn't get a chance to do that.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to bring Ayende on for a cameo because he's the next generation. So
Hey,
you wanna say hi?
Hello.
what's up, nephew?
And let's if you can just I know we said, oh, thank you, Jackie. That's one of your pieces. She sent him back to his mother, right?
I love
Stephanie,
those grooves.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, you want me to talk about this one a little bit?
Yes, very quickly.
Just any closing thoughts? That is my great aunt Bootsy, who's in that image, and I just really loved this image of her because she had a very sweet side, but she was also very very much standing firm in her worth. And the title was kind of about her first marriage because she had somebody, I guess, who just like wasn't present or something like that. And she was like, you could go on back to your mother, you know. That was kind of like, it wasn't very common at the time. Oh wow. Yeah, this is a photo, I think maybe mid to late 1950s. This is one of my favorite. But yeah, she's a big inspiration. And a lot of the earlier pieces that I made, textile pieces, were kind of commemorative of her. A lot of the work has been. So, and that's
just this last one.
Yeah, that's a print on paper, but the image in the center is actually a textile print. So it's several different layers. It's like a monoprint, screen print that's collaged onto a screen print that I did on paper.
Very
and
cool.
In Search of Sweetness.
In Search of Sweetness.
That's the title of that one.
By the way, I meant to say I love your titles of your pieces. They're so dope. So
thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, y'all. We've very much over time, but that's a good thing because everything just went flowed and nicely. So I want to thank you all again. Ali, we're actually going to go out on showing one of your pieces. But if there's any last words that anybody wants to say, please feel free to say so now. And I just want to thank the audience again. Y'all have been fantastic. This will be available on our YouTube page, and we'll probably have it available somewhere else as well. So just look out if you're not on mailing lists, join our mailing list so you get alerts on that. So yeah, ma'am, anybody else? Oh, and yes, thank you. Please also make sure to go to luminotheater.org /kindred-conversations. Check out our theater page because so much of the Santana Project's work is on there, and you can get a fantastic view of who they are through their work there. So any parting words, anybody else? No?
Thank you for
Take us
having
out,
us.
Ali. Take us out. Take us out, Ali.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
it away.
Thank you.
Y'all are so talented. Oh man. All right, everybody. Thank you again. Check out the website and we'll see you again soon. Peace, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Good night.
Peace.
Good night.